people in that man is the one who purchased him. He bought him as a slave, as a piece of property. And he takes him to his home and tells his wife, listen, you know what? Take care of this kid. Treat him well. Who knows? He may benefit us later. Maybe he'll be strong and healthy and he can do work for us. Hey, maybe we could even adopt him as our own son. But take care of him. So now, Yusuf alayhi salam, through the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is in the house of this wealthy man who has a high status in his community or in the society in which he lives. Some say he was a minister, some say he was maybe even like the prime minister of today. Alright, he was a man of power. Anyhow, as we said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now begins that part of Yusuf's life where he's been established on earth. He's put in this home, which is a very, very influential home. And he's growing in that home. Allah skips through all those details, how long or whatever. Who knows, maybe it was 10, 12 years. So you can imagine, he's quite young. He was, maybe anywhere between 10 to 12 years old at that time. And another 12, 13 years passed. All this while he was growing in that home. He was being raised in that home. And as we see up here, this Yusuf alayhi salam was an extremely handsome young man. An extremely handsome young man. As we find in the authentic reports, beauty, see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates everything. You know about mercy, rahmah. Allah Jalla wa ala created mercy and divided it into 100 parts. Only one part out of 100 did he send to earth. So all this compassion and mercy that we show towards one another, that animals show towards one another, animals show towards their offspring, even all that compassion and mercy you find throughout the world is only one part out of the 100 parts. The other 99, Allah Azza wa Jalla has kept with him. And on the day of Qiyamah, everybody will experience from that rahmah and that mercy. And this is why you will find that the Muslims will be forgiven left, right, and center. To the extent that even Iblis at that time will think he has a chance, seeing how much rahmah is being spread. Come back to beauty. So beauty, Allah Jalla wa ala created beauty amongst His creation, and He divided it into two halves. One half of it was given to Yusuf alayhi salam. Can you imagine? The rest of beauty was divided amongst the rest of mankind. It's unimaginable how beautiful and how handsome Yusuf alayhi salam must have been. Now, we are human beings. Imratul Aziz, the wife of that minister, she was a human being. You think she was not attracted to him? And again, in the story, we get this indication that she had been trying to seduce him for quite some time. Not only when Allah Jalla wa ala mentions it. قالت هيك لك. This means this time I got you. In other words, she's been trying earlier. She did try to seduce him earlier, whether it be through her soft speech or it be through her actions. People flirt in different ways. Through her clothing, she was trying to seduce him. And by the way, Yusuf alayhi salam was not gay. I have to say it in this day and age. In this day and age, where the minds of the people have become so filthy, I actually have to tell you that. I don't recall ever saying this before. But anyway, this came to my mind right now. It has to be alone. Because I come from a country, and unfortunately, I'm not bragging or being proud about it, but unfortunately, the city that I was living in was the first one to allow gay marriages in Canada. Anyhow. So he was not gay. There was nothing wrong with him physically. He was physically fit. He had the same desires that any other human being would have. But what is it that kept him from becoming a slave to his desires? It was his iman. His faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knew what was right and what was wrong. He knew that doing something wrong is disobeying Allah, which he did not want to do. So she had tried, but he resisted. You think he was not going to be tempted? Of course, he was a human being, and so he would be tempted. But he had seen the signs of Allah. He had seen how Allah Jalla wa Ala had protected him all along. It was, sure death, perhaps in the well, but he was protected and taken from there. And he was sold as a slave. But even then, look who bought him, and look at what type of home he was placed. So the protection of Allah Jalla wa Ala was there. So one day she decides that's it. She cannot take it any longer. He's not getting my hint. And she has not been able to seduce him as she wanted to. So she dresses up for him, and she puts him in a room, and she locks the door. And she says, now come and have me. You can take me now. And the way that Allah Jalla wa Ala illustrates it for us, وَغَنَّفَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ, that's it. First of all, she's from high society. Who's going to question her? Whatever he wants to do, he can do. There are going to be no consequences, worldly consequences. Who's going to do anything to him? It is as though she's saying, you're protected. You're with me. Who's going to touch you? Right? Nobody can get to her, especially in that time, in that society. That's how things work. And everything is a cover-up, as you will see in just a short while. So all the asbab, all the means are there. Whatever he wants to do, he can do. But Yusuf alayhi salam resists. She tried, but he did not. He would have had he not seen the signs from Allah Jalla wa Ala, because he was a human being. You have to understand that. It's not that he tried anything. He did not try because of his iman, because of his faith. This is what held him back. Many ask, okay, how can we resist all these temptations around us? Both brothers and sisters ask. It is your iman. Your iman, if it is there, it will cause you to lower your gaze. It will cause you not to allow yourself to be in situations where there is going to be fitna and where you will be tempted. You will make certain that you follow those guidelines that have been set down for you by Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So now, this is the scene. And Yusuf alayhi salam wants to flee. He wants to run away from her. And so he goes towards the door, and she grabs him from the back. And what happens as a result of it? The shirt is torn off. The shirt is torn. She's grabbing him, so the shirt tears from the back. And he's at the door, and what do you know? Aziz is at the door. He opens the door. What's going on? Immediately, she now accuses Yusuf alayhi salam of trying to seduce her. Right? She says to her husband, listen, he tried to do something to me. He tried to make moves on me. Alright. So, Al-Aziz is shocked. He's in a state of disbelief. Really? This is what's happening here? And somebody who was close to her, the wife of Al-Aziz, happened to be there, and he said, hang on, I can tell you what's going on. Right? Logic. If the shirt is torn from the back, then she is lying, he's telling the truth. But if the shirt is torn from the front, he was trying to make the move on her, and she was resisting, so the shirt was torn from the front. Sure enough, turns out, it is proven that Yusuf alayhi salam was the innocent one. He was the victim. And she was the aggressor. And subhanAllah, you know how it is in high society, it's all about cover-ups. Even Al-Aziz doesn't know what to do. So he turns to Yusuf alayhi salam and says, just ignore it. Right? Let it slide. Ignore it, let it go. Brush it under the carpet. It'll pass. And he knows that his wife is wrong, so he says, seek forgiveness from the Lord. Right? And he tries to excuse her, it's not just you, I'm sure all the women, all the pressure and all of that, in the case of not your pot, but the pots of the women. So basically trying to make an excuse for her, and he subhanAllah, still happens today. They try to make things go away. So this is what Al-Aziz does, and she won't stand for it. And she has an image to keep. What do you need? No, he's got to go to prison. Some punishment. Now, naturally, news like this travels. And women similar to her, living in the high society, they don't have much to do. A lot of time to kill. So any type of gossip that comes, of course, it's born in God. So you got word of what happened between this woman and Yusuf alayhi salam. And then wow, she actually was the one who made the moves on him and so on and so forth. So she goes, I'll teach them a lesson. Do they even know what they're talking about? So she prepares this banquet for them, right? So she comes and gets things ready, puts some meat and fruits and all of that, and makes sure that there are very sharp knives there as well, obviously to cut the meat or peel the fruits and whatever else. And as they're sitting there in that banquet, she then invites Yusuf alayhi salam to walk in on them. And as they are doing their cutting or of the fruits or the meat or whatever else, and Yusuf alayhi salam walks in, they are taken aback. I mean, they were shocked. What is this? This is not a human being. This is an angel. فَقَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنَّ. The way Allah Jalla wa'ala phrases it is not that, they kind of lift their hands, little cuts, فَقَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنَّ. They cut themselves badly. Amazing. This couldn't be a human being. This must be an angel. What else? And guess what? They all tried to seduce him. All those women sitting there. This is what you learn if you read carefully. If you read those ayat, they tried to seduce him. Don't think seduce means necessarily that they physically do something. But maybe the way they were doing their hair, the way they were smiling, the language of the eyes, right? Through many things. Whatever way, they were being flirtatious. They were trying to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam as well. And that is when he turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another big lesson. There are many that pass by, but we just don't have the time. Another huge lesson. And I think I alluded to it yesterday when I said, do not attribute things to yourself. When we are successful and this, don't think I'm the one that was able to accomplish this. I've done it. So Yusuf alayhi salam realizes everything rests with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? رَبِّ السِّجْنِ مِمَّا يَدْعُونَنِي. Allah, prison is more beloved to me than what they're inviting me to. Right? So in essence, he is turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and asking Allah Jalla wa ala to protect him and to save him from what is going on. Okay? And as we said, because of the cover-up, they're able to convict him. That's it. Look, and it happened up until this day. And maybe worse than it was then. Because of the position and the power that these people have, the guilty become the innocent and the victims. Right? And the poor victim turns out to be the guilty one. He becomes the mazloom. Or the zalim, I should say. The mazloom becomes the zalim. Actually, he is the one that had wrong done to him, but he is looked upon as the one who did wrong. So, word gets around. Now they're all plotting, and guess what? They're able to convict Yusuf alayhi salam and have him thrown into prison. He's in prison, and again, how long he spends there exactly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. No due process. He's just thrown in prison. Again, I said just a while ago that big lesson, not rely upon your inner strength and you are able to, and no. It goes back to Allah. We turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for assistance in everything. Okay? Don't depend on yourself. Depend on Allah, and then inshallah ta'ala you'll find things will go your way. Alright, so now he's in prison, and even in prison, he does not want to waste any time. He wants to benefit from his time there. Just earlier on, I was speaking to some of our brothers, and we were talking about, how we can make the best impact on others. And I mentioned this expression that we have in English, where we say a picture is worth 1,000 words. People will take you seriously when they see you doing what you say. Right? Practice what the Greeks say. If I tell people that smoking is bad and it kills, and the next thing they see me with a cigarette, really? It's that bad, huh? That's what you're smoking. Kids, if parents try to tell them something and parents are doing that thing, they're not going to take their parents seriously. That's just the way life is. Yusuf alayhi salam is in prison, but he uses this opportunity to call people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He debates them again logically. What's better, all of these gods, false gods that you're worshipping, or Allah, the one who is the creator, the one who is powerful and has control over all things? Which is better? He's speaking to them logically. And at that time, Yaqub alayhi salam, Ishaq, Ibrahim alayhi salam, they're all known to the people. They have heard of them. They have all heard of them. So he's saying, listen, I'm upon that religion, the religion of my father Yaqub and Ishaq and Ibrahim alayhi salam. So, wow, they would come to Yusuf alayhi salam when they had issues. Why? Because they saw in him that righteousness and that piety, the way he behaved, the way that he was devoted to Allah and he would pray to Allah. They were seeing all of this in front of them, and so they were comfortable with it. And then there are two youth that are thrown into jail as well. And because of what they see in him, and they feel happy and content with him, they then come to Yusuf alayhi salam and say, listen, we've seen this dream. Can you interpret our dreams? Each one has seen a dream. And Yusuf alayhi salam says, you know what, even before you get your next meal, I can tell you that. And he doesn't say because I'm so good, because of what my Lord, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught me, given me the ability to judge things, and given me the ability to interpret dreams. It's because Allah has granted me that. And I come from this lineage, and I am upon this faith. So he does this da'wah under the strenuous circumstances in which he was, but he's still busy inviting people towards the truth and spreading the message of goodness. And so that's it. They agree. He gives them this da'wah, and then he starts interpreting the dreams for them. The one, he tells him that, you're going to be killed. You're going to be crucified. And the other one says, you are going to be one who pours the drinks for a king. But he doesn't tell them which of the two is going to be crucified. And it is said, Allahu A'lam, in some of the reports, that one of them was the cook of the king, and the other one used to pour drinks. And they heard that somebody was plotting to kill the king, and so he was going to poison his drink and his food. And then they realized that it's probably the one who was the cook. And that's why the cook is the one who was crucified. Anyhow, this is one of the reports that we have. It's not important though. What is important is the two of them have this dream, and Yusuf alayhi salam interprets the dream, and then he says to the one that he thought is probably not going to be crucified, don't forget to mention me to your master. Put in a good word for me, if you will. And so they are released from prison. The one is crucified, and the other one forgets all about Yusuf alayhi salam. And it is as though this was a lesson from Allah Jalla wa Ala to Yusuf alayhi and then sold. You were sold into a good home. Allah. Who is it that saved you when those women, that woman and the other women, they tried to seduce you? It was Allah. So Yusuf, what's the matter with you now? You want to depend on a human being to release you from prison? It was a lesson for him. Why did you ask him to mention you to the king? There's no need for that. Allah who protected you all along is still here to protect you now. So Yusuf alayhi salam remains in prison because the guy out there doesn't remember him. And as he is busy serving the king, one day the king sees a dream. And he comes to his, counselors, and he relates that dream to them. This is what I've seen in my dream. 7 fat cows, 7 skinny cows, these grains that are green and these that are dried up and whatever. The whole dream is related. And probably because they had no idea what was going on, they gave this excuse that, you know what, this is all mumbo jumbo. It can't be interpreted. And plus, we don't interpret dreams anyways. Because if it was something easy, listen, they are under the king. All they want to do is say something nice. They want to be in his good books. If they have to tell him, there's going to be a drought, they don't want to say anything that will displease the king. So they find their way out. News reaches that individual who was in prison with Yusuf alayhi salam, and he comes to the king and says, hey, listen, I know this guy. He might be able to interpret that dream for you. So will you let me go? He says, all right, go ahead. And so he comes and he relates the dream to Yusuf alayhi salam. And ya subhanallah, Yusuf alayhi salam learned his lesson. He did not say, listen, this time around, think about it. Somebody comes and they need a favor. You're in prison. You watched enough TV to know that the prisoner will say, let's get a deal. You want information? You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Right? But Yusuf alayhi salam doesn't ask for any favors. He learned his lesson the first time around. He got left in prison for a long time because he was hoping for a favor from the creation. And he was taught that you should always only depend on the Creator subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, no conditions at all. Immediately, he interprets that dream, and guess what? He even gives another piece of information that is not found in the dream. And that is the 1 year afterwards. That is going to be a very nice year. Where they're going to find a lot of rain and they're going to harvest their crops and so on and so forth. That wasn't even in the dream. But Yusuf alayhi salam added that as a bonus. No conditions. Without any hesitation. And so he goes back and he tells the king, and the king is shocked. Who is this guy? That he was able to give you such an accurate interpretation. And it is so helpful because now we can plan for the future. We can plan ahead. Who is this guy? He's got to be trustworthy. Let's see. Bring him here. He sends somebody to bring Yusuf alayhi salam, and now Yusuf alayhi salam could have said, right on, I'm free. But no. Now he's going to stipulate conditions. I want to make sure, Yusuf alayhi salam, he wants to make sure that his innocence is known and proven once and for all. So he simply asks that question. Go and ask him, what happened to those women who chopped out their own hands? What's their story now? And so, the message reaches the king, and the king is doing some investigation. He wants to make sure he knows the whole story. So he investigates, and then finally, he comes to these women, and he says, what's the deal? What happened? And this is when even Imra'atul Aziz, the minister's wife, she confesses. And it is as though she's confessing to kind of, she knows she doesn't have a chance with Yusuf alayhi salam, but what must he be thinking of her? That she's probably looking down on her, she's such an evil woman. And so she wants to, at least regain some of her dignity. So I may as well tell the truth. As though she is saying, yeah, let me save face with Yusuf at least. Right? Let him not think so poorly of me any longer. And so she confesses. She says it all. And his innocence is proven. Then she's completely cut from the story. There is no more need for her, so Allah Azza wa Jalla doesn't even mention her until the end of the story. Anyhow, Yusuf alayhi salam, we have to fast forward because our time is up. Yusuf alayhi salam is let out from prison, and he, although for us, we should not ask for position. Right? This is why all these elections, it's nonsense. As a matter of fact, the Prophet alayhi salatu taught us people who ask for positions, don't give it to them. But today we campaign for ourselves. Hey, elect me. That is the general rule. But there are cases when you may be certain that you are the only one fit to do that job correctly. Then it becomes an amana. Then it's a trust. Then you have to do it. There's nobody else who can actually do that. You're the only one qualified. Just leave it to anybody else out of what? Well, out of modesty? No. Then you're going to bring harm to everyone. So Yusuf alayhi salam says, listen, appoint me. I want to take care of the treasury. The storehouses, they will be in, the economy should be in my hands, and I will not disappoint. Yes, because Allah Jalla wa Ala prepared him for that, and Allah Jalla wa Ala granted him the wisdom and the knowledge and so on and so forth. And so he is appointed. And he runs the affairs so well. And that drought that he interpreted from the dream, it hits them. And it hits hard, not only in this area, far away as well. Yes, even where Yaqub alayhi salam is with his other sons. So bad that people from far away now are coming to Egypt to trade, to take some food, whatever they have, they come and they trade and so on. And so the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam come, they don't recognize him. They're not expecting to see him to begin with. And he was so young. Of course, kids change a lot. But they were already older, so he recognized them. He didn't say anything. Right? And they came with their goods, and he told the people that were with him, you know what, whatever they had brought, put it back in their, in their saddlebags. Let them go back not only with what we had given them, but whatever they came with, let them go back with it as well. And so they do. And as he's talking to them and getting to know them, and oh yes, and oh mashallah, your father is Yaqub, and he talk about the younger brother, hey, how about the next? Come on, you know what? The next time you come, it'll be wonderful. Just bring your brother along with you. And so they go, and they're promising him, yes, we will do it. Because they know times are tough. And so they promise him that they will do their utmost to bring the brother. When they go back, they try to convince the father again, let Binyamin go with us. Yeah, I know you don't trust us because of what happened in the past, but believe me, he's insisting that we bring our little brother. And we promise you, we will take care of him. Things are different now. And the father again agrees. Reluctantly, but he agrees. And he gives them advice. For their own safety, don't all go in through one gate, going through different gates and whatever else. He gives all sorts of advice, and they go back. When they go back and the trade is taking place, Yusuf alayhi salam takes his younger brother Binyamin aside. And he starts talking to him, and he divulges to him that I'm your brother Yusuf. Whoa, are you serious? And they have a nice chat, and he gets caught up on what's happening back home, how mom and dad are, etc., etc. All of this is happening without the knowledge of the other brothers. Don't worry, things are going to be fine. I'll take care of things. Now he wants, again, وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَى أَمْرِهِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So Allah Jalla wa Ala has a plan. He wants that entire family to be reunited. And so he devises this plot that, there's this gold cup that is used to measure. Right? It's a cup of the king or of the treasurer. Anyways, so he tells his people hide it in one of their bags. But hide it in a particular bag, that of Binyamin, of the younger brother. And then an announcement is saying that this gold cup of the minister is missing. Somebody has stolen it. What? Hang on, what's going on? And so the caravans all line up. Okay, what's going on? Who's got it? Who's done it? Okay, you know what? Tell us. Now they're trying to say, the brothers, they're trying to say, we have not come to cause any trouble. We're good. We're straight people. Don't worry about it. None of us has done it. Okay, what do you suggest? If we find the thief, what shall we do with him? Because their law was that they would kill the person. They said no. The sons, the 10 brothers, they said, well, the law of our father is that whoever the guilty party is becomes your possession, will become your slave. All right? We'll judge according to your father's law, his Sharia. No problem. Let's start searching. They're all confident, they haven't stolen it. Sure enough, they go through all the bags, all of them are innocent. And all of a sudden they pull it out of the bag of Binyamin. What? How come? Of course, this is all planned. Now the brothers, they make up another lie. Oh, his brother before was a thief too. Yusuf, can you believe it? He knows that it's a lie because they're talking about him. Look at me, I'm a thief now too? You know? It's alright. Anyways, they say, how about a trade? One of us in place of him, because we got history with father. So how about one of us? No, that would be injustice. Unjust. That's injustice. How can we take somebody else? He's a thief, he stays. Go back. Tell your father what's happened. And so one of the brothers says, I'm not going to leave this place. You guys go back and tell father what's happened and so on and so forth. You tell him what you need to tell him. And so they go back and they relate the story to Yusuf to Yaqub alayhi salam. And of course, again, he knows that something is wrong. But deep down inside, he knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has something planned. He is crying over his son, but not in front of anybody. Remember what I said earlier? Not complaining to the creation, but complaining to Allah. إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو حُزْنِي وَبَثِّي إِلَى اللَّهِ. I complain to Allah, not about Allah to anybody else. And so it's apparent. His eyes turn white. I mean, that's a way of saying that he can't see any longer because of how much he's crying. They rebuke him for that. In any event, they need to go back. They need to go back. And when they go back, the first thing they do is start pleading, and things are really tough. Yusuf alayhi salam cuts to the chase, as we say, and he says to them, I'm Yusuf. What? Yeah, you're Yusuf. And they start to plead for forgiveness. And something very important here. Yusuf alayhi salam does not say to them, all right guys, let me think about it. Give me some time. I need some closure in this whole thing. Let me wrap my mind around this whole thing, and I'll get around to forgiving you. No, immediately. It's not even mentioned that he forgave them, but the way that Allah will forgive you, meaning that that's it. As for me, it's over and done with. I will not even mention this again later. It's the end of the story. No more. I will never remind you of it. I've forgiven you, and Allah inshallah will forgive you as well. End of the story. Right? Then he gives them a shirt to go back and to throw in the face of the father, and he will see again. Anyways, they do so. As they're approaching, as they're coming back to Canaan, Yaqub alayhi salam is sitting with his family, and he's reminiscing and talking about Yusuf alayhi salam. He's like, if you guys wouldn't say that I'm crazy or something, I'm telling you, I can smell him. You could smell Yusuf alayhi salam. And when they come and they throw the shirt in his face, he can see again. And the message was for all of the family to come to Egypt. And so all of them are reunited with Yusuf alayhi salam. And as it says in the Quran, Yusuf alayhi salam honors his parents, and the Sharia at that time did not prevent one from doing sujood. At that time, the Sharia didn't prevent it. The Sharia does prevent it today, by the way. So we cannot do sujood before any human being. But because it was permissible at that time to do so for the sake of respect, then he did this for his parents. And just go back a little bit, when the brothers had come back and asked the father for forgiveness, The response of Yaqub alayhi salam was not the same as Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam said, it's cool, forget it. It didn't even happen. As for Yaqub alayhi salam, he was older. And he went through murder, through torture. He didn't know where Yusuf was, alayhi salam, whether he's alive or not. So he says, don't worry about it. I will ask for your forgiveness. I will ask Allah to forgive you. And some of them say that, he was waiting for a certain time, and some of them said that perhaps he was waiting for the last 6 of the night, as-sudus al-akhir, as-sahar, as-sahar, when he would stand before Allah Azza wa Jalla in Qiyam, then he was going to ask Allah for forgiveness, whatever the case may be. But Yaqub alayhi salam was not so quick in forgiving as Yusuf alayhi salam was. And as I said, they eventually all gathered, and the most amazing thing, because we have to conclude, is that Yusuf alayhi salam, right to the end, all that mattered was, how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala look upon him? And so he raises his hands and he says, he calls out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, acknowledging the favors of Allah Jalla wa ala, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ وَجَاءَ بِكُمْ مِنَ الْبَرِّ. And he's acknowledging everything that happened, that Allah Azza wa Jalla brought you to me, and so on and so forth. من بعد أن نزغ الشيطان بيني وبين إخوتي إن ربي لطيف لما يشاء إنه هو العليم الحكيم. He continues with his dua. رَبِّ قَدْ آتَيْتَنِي مِنَ الْمُلْكِ. Ya Allah, you are the one who granted me all of this. وَعَلَّمْتَنِي مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. And you are the one who taught me, to interpret dreams and judge things. فَاطِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. You are the creator. أَنْتَ وَلِيِّ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. You are my guardian. You are my protector in this world as well as the next. But how does it end? تَوَفَّنِي مُسْلِمًا. The important thing is, Ya Allah, take me away in the state of Islam. وَأَلْحِقْنِي بِالصَّالِحِينَ. And let me be in the company of the righteous, that is, in the hereafter. هذا والله تعالى أعلم. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله